Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining in this session on Kala Sarpa, and really sorry for starting late because I was facing some technical issues. Anyways, I did a blunder yesterday by not recording the session on Jyotish Foundation. So I had to redo the session all by myself, and then the recordings were of course uploaded late in the night. But unfortunately, the question answers are not there in the recording that was uploaded on YouTube. Okay, so it's really unfortunate, but anyways, that is something that is out of our control. Okay, so Kala Sarpa with Rahu in the 9th house, and before we begin, let's start with the daily Shanti mantra from the Upanishads. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunakatu, Sah Viryankara Vavahai, तेजस्विनादधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So, 9th house is regarded as the, is regarded as the Maran Karan Sthan of Rahu because, 9th house is the house of Dharma, and Rahu represents the, highest Dharma. It represents the breaking of rules, the breaking of Dharma. Okay. So Rahu in the 9th house, it muddies or it spoils the pursuit of dharma and righteousness as well as right conduct. Okay, because Rahu is a dire malefic having more to do with material and sensual satisfaction rather than morals or spiritual development. Okay, and people having Rahu in the 9th house, they have a very different idea of how religion should be, but most of the people who laid the foundation of certain schools of Hinduism, okay, they had Rahu in the 9th house. Okay, and one of the prominent examples is Paramahansa Yogananda. Okay, so he was one of the biggest spiritual teachers that this country ever produced, and he has done a monumental work in terms of Kriya Yoga. So he had Rahu in the in the 9th house, and he did a lot of work for religion, or as far as religion is concerned. Okay, so Rahu, as we know, it represents desire and obsession, while Ketu represents ambivalence as well as detachment. So with Rahu in the 9th and Ketu in the 3rd, this creates a bias for dogmatic beliefs and religious fervor, or a desire to be seen as a moral or spiritual authority. Sometimes this desire is fulfilled at the cost of one's relationships with siblings, because the 3rd house is the house of siblings, right? As well as at the cost of normal flow of communications between peers and team members. Okay. So Rahu, it's a Vata provoking malefic, and the 9th house, it rules the thighs and hips. So Rahu's presence in the 9th house, it can bring pain and a condition called a neuralgia to that, to the thighs and the hips. Okay, for example, sciatica is that pain which affects the back, hip, or outer thigh, right? And this is usually caused by compression of a spinal nerve in the lower back. So since Rahu represents foreign objects, it can indicate prosthetics or replacement of joints. Okay, so a native having Rahu in the 9th house can be a primary candidate for a joint replacement or hip replacement surgery. Okay. And the 9th house is Dharma, and Dharma, of course, it means right conduct. Okay, so what just hold on. Okay, so what do our gurus say? Follow Dharma and you'll never come to harm. Dharmo raksha rakshati, right? But then Rahu is someone who does not listen to any guru. Okay, Rahu puts the ego first, and it makes the native indulge in things for the sake of momentary happiness. Okay, so Rahu always acts instinctively, and it takes whatever it needs. Like, for example, if hungry, if it eats, right? If aroused, it fornicates. If angry, it kills. So when you follow your desires for the sake of sense gratification, You risk killing that part of human nature, which sets us apart from animals. We have a moral code, right? Our morality separates us from animals. So if you indulge in instant gratification of your desires, you are actually compromising with your moral code. Okay. So Rahu is obsessions. Rahu represents your obsessions, and the ninth house represents principles. Okay. And it could be moral or political or spiritual doctrine. Right. And since Rahu acts as a proxy, combining the influence of any planets with whom it is concerned, it can act as a conducting or a lightning rod for multiple effects. And because Rahu is malefic, okay, because Rahu is malefic, so the native could become a firebrand or a rebel bruiser, a demagogue, or a person who uses a public platform to rant about the issues that stoke his fire. All right. So if you remember, we had done Rahu in the 8th house and Ketu in the 2nd house, and we had looked at the chart of Joseph Goebbels, who was Hitler's minister of propaganda. Okay, if you haven't done that class, please go back to the previous classes, and you will find that discussion where we had taken up the chart of Goebbels. Okay, but then even under the best of circumstances, such a native may have a flair for innovation because Rahu represents out of the box thinking. Okay, and a flair of unconventionality. That means a unique way of doing things. All right, just give me a second. Okay, really sorry about that. There was a power cut. Anyways, so Rahu also represents, your craving for things. Okay, so in the 9th house, it can represent a number of desires for any number of things, right? It can also represent that your father was absent when you were growing up, or it can represent a teacher who was absent to guide you in your studies, right? Or it can represent the absence of higher education to guide your career, okay? Or suppose you have a lot of things to share, right? So it can represent the absence of a forum like a broadcast platform or a publishing platform or social media to share your ideas with the world. Okay, so because because 9th house is the house of the father, so Rahu suggests someone who is a rebel. Okay, and it can also mean that the native's father may be somewhat eccentric or kooky, filled with strange ideas and exhibiting old behaviors. And these people, they may be susceptible to substance abuse, drug abuse, right? And they may be risk takers. Okay, because Ketu is the great fanatic, and sitting in the 3rd house, it inspires the native to take a lot of risks. Okay, these people can also be, taboo breakers, following their obsessions down various paths, like exhibiting low class behaviors or offbeat travels. Okay, or radical politics and even extramarital affairs. Okay, under the best circumstances, as I said, these people can be innovators, making new pathways for others to follow. And at worst, these people could be total social misfits. Okay, Sun and Moon are social planets. Okay, Rahu and Ketu being the primary enemies of Sun and Moon, respectively, they are very antisocial. Okay, so at worst, these people, they could be total misfits socially, rebel roosers, and fanatics who are bent on sweeping aside moral conventions to violate principles of law and religion. Okay, this is one of the placements that can produce suicide bombers because Rahu and Ketu are without morality. Okay, so these people, they don't have any hesitation while killing someone, even though it means blowing themselves up in the process. Okay, and Rahu in the night, it casts a shadow, okay, not only over the father but also over all father figures, right? It could be, father figures can also be government, because the government is as a whole is taking care of the citizens, right? It can be politicians like your local MP or MLA, or local I don't know what it is known in the West, okay, local senator, okay, or even celebrities who have a lot of people working under them. Okay, so such people in the native's life, they are either amplified or exaggerated or inflated. Okay, and they are very autocratic. They can have a sense of self-entitlement and self-righteousness. And since Rahu is a surrogate, that means it represents the foreign element. So the native may also end up having a stepfather, or place all his or her faith in a strongman politician who fulfills the need for a powerful father figure. Okay, So a lot of people who work under politicians, who work in social media teams of politicians and consider politicians as unfallible or infallible. You see this happening quite often in India. Okay, a party assumes power, and the political leader becomes, untouchable. That means you cannot blame the political leader, and if you blame, those people, then there would be a host of other people who would be coming and fighting with you on social media or even on the street. Okay. And because Ketu is in the third house, so these people, they may not get along with their siblings either. And even if they do, they will find it difficult to run a house or a business with their siblings. Okay. At the root, there may be some kind of sibling rivalry based on restoring a relationship with a lost father. Okay. And these people, as I said, they have a lot of self-righteousness about them, and they constantly need to prove themselves capable, and their siblings cannot be a part of their success. Okay. Ninth house is also the house of higher education. Okay, so since Rahu seeks material success more than knowledge, its placement in the ninth house is somewhat incongruous as far as higher education is concerned. Okay, for example, university studies can be regarded as higher education, but rather than university studies, rather than being viewed as an expansion of intellectual horizons, for this native, such studies may be regarded largely as an expedient means to gain admission to a labor market with higher salaries or greater prospect for promotion. Okay, you've seen people who are doing engineering, and they'll tell all their friends all the time that what will you do with an engineering degree, or what am I going to do with an engineering degree? I'm going to end up as a corporate slave. Okay, so my higher education has no value as such. So this is how Rahu in the ninth house works. Okay, and because ninth house is the house of long distance travel, and Rahu is the foreign element, so Rahu in the ninth can indicate the locale or the subject matter of higher education. Okay, for example, it can be it can make you study at an international university, or it can make you study foreign topics, even if you're studying topics on foreign countries, if you are studying at a university in your homeland or home country. Okay, and the native would be looking for subjects like anthropology or foreign languages or international studies, as well as science research in general. Okay, and because Rahu represents breaks, because Rahu is irregular, so there could be some setbacks in such study. For example, there could be a change of major, right, interruption of studies, change of thesis supervisor, or even difficulties in getting one's thesis accepted or published. Okay, and since Rahu is an imposter, in some cases this may indicate a native whose academic credentials are not bona fide. That means they are not genuine. Okay, so most of the politicians do that. Okay, most of the politicians do that. Because you have to go to Rahu in the seventh house. We have covered that, okay, in great details. So with Rahu in the ninth house, the native has a compulsion to live by a righteous belief. And as I said, these people are very fascinated by philosophy, obsessed with finding a doctrine to guide them through life. And if convinced on the merits of such a belief, they may become, very zealous in promoting that belief or ideology. Okay, so, for these people, ideology occupies a large space in your worldview. Okay, and sometimes people with Rahu in the ninth, they are drawn to fields that promote strict codes of conduct, for example, religious ceremonies or spiritual rituals or sacred teachings. Okay, anything that involves indoctrination into a certain set of beliefs. Okay, because Rahu tends to exaggerate, the native may be compulsively dogmatic about following things, to the letter. And as I said, Rahu is foreign as well as unorthodox. So the native may be attracted to ideologies that are distinctly different from his or her upbringing. So as a result, things can go awry, resulting in affiliations with exotic guru figures or fraudulent priests or tantric masters or magicians or other charlatans that may adulterate their teachings of dharma with notions of financial or sexual surrender. Okay, and such a native may want to acquire or demonstrate ideological authority, for example, as a father figure or as a guide or guru, or an imam or a kahuna or a mentor or minister or a priest or pontiff or preacher or patriarch, professor, then pandit or rabbi. anything that you can think of, all the religious heads basically. Okay. And these people, they often seek a pulpit from which to preach their chosen doctrine. Okay. And if such a pulpit is not available via usual forms of education and religion, then these people may gravitate to politics, where ideologies of all kinds, even radical ones, find a receptive audience. Yes, so we know what is going on, right? We are all a part of social media. So even radical ideas are appreciated by some people. Okay. And these people, they can be very charismatic in promoting their cause. He or she can channel the aspirations of people and lead the masses into a religious or political frenzy. Okay. And once comfortable in such a role, these people, they risk of becoming becoming self-righteous demagogues. Okay. That means, once they achieve their means, or once they achieve their objectives, they run the risk of becoming dictators. Okay. But then these people, ultimately, they want to be seen as holy people, right? But because they have so much materialistic desires, so it muddies the ninth house. It corrupts the ninth house. Okay. Because if someone is truly holy, then he or she will not speak about his or her holiness. They are simply holy. Those people are simply holy. Okay. And that is the dilemma for the native with Rahu in the ninth house. Okay. Because they have a need to be respected, a need to be worshipped, and that need can become so obsessive that it may lead to misconduct. Okay. There is a saying, there is a cliche that tells that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Okay. So these people, as I said, they have a tendency to become dictators. They have a habit of cloaking their ambitions with a pinch of philosophy and doctrine, like, do as I say, do not do what I not what I do. Okay. So these people, they end up becoming individuals that practice other than what they preach. And what do we call them? We call them as hypocrites. Those people are called as hypocrites. So they become hypocrites who are concerned more with achievement than spirituality. Okay. Or practical spirituality. For example, you may have the yoga teacher who smokes cigarettes, or the priest who indulges in child porn, or the rehabilitation sponsor who drinks. Okay. Or a professor teaching spirituality, but who sleeps with his students, or a sports trainer who uses steroids, or a politician who accepts bribes, or even a guru who demands financial donations from their followers, and even a judge whose rulings can be bought with money. Okay. So as I said, Rahu in the ninth, it gives a very non-traditionalist, it makes a very non-traditionalist guru. For example, tantrics, for instance, they are seen as operating outside mainstream Hinduism because they intentionally violate so many traditional precepts of proper conduct, right? So there will be tantrics who smoke tobacco, or who drink alcohol, or who eat meat. And as doing these things, they try to transcend the various things that are considered poison to a traditional Hindu. Okay. And when Jupiter joins Rahu in the ninth, or whenever Jupiter joins Rahu, it forms Guru Chandala Yoga. Okay. And what is Chandala? Chandala is a very derogatory term. Okay. It represents a low caste person who works at a crematorium. And why is it known as Guru Chandala Yoga? Because Jupiter, it represents our moral code. Rahu represents our instinctive desires. And since these two principles are incompatible, this planetary combination reflects how our nature might sink to its lowest level when satisfying our own self-interests. Okay. So it's a wonderful combination if you use it positively. But if you use it negatively, it can be really troublesome, not only for you, but also for the people around you. Okay. So we'll stop here. We'll not go to K2 in the third. In the next class, we'll be covering K2 in the third with the example charts. Any questions till here?
Hello, this is Banu here.
Yes, ma'am.
So now, transit-wise, Jupiter is going to Aries.
Right.
right? So now in Aries we already have Rahu. So there is going to be Guru Chandala Yoga starting April till October, is it?
You're right. Right.
Okay. And the impact of that combination is going to be different for different people depending upon what house it falls in, right? So if it is
Yes.
ninth house, then um, the ascendant who has like ninth house um, Jupiter and Rahu is going to have like impact on the ninth house related activities then
Yeah,
spiritual.
it depends on which house Aries represents in the birth chart. Okay. So as
Okay,
you said,
okay,
if Aries is in the ninth house, then spirituality wise, it could lead to a lot of a lot of uncovered information coming up, or it could
okay.
lead to investment in new technologies to spread spiritual ideas, because Rahu also represents technology. Okay.
Does the person do PhD if they have Jupiter and Rahu in ninth house?
It can, because Rahu represents unconventionality and ninth house is education. So the PhD can be in a topic which is a bit unconventional, which is a bit not related to the native, where the native is born. For
Okay,
example, say the native is born in a village, and then the PhD could be in a topic which is concerned with, say, gender study of Africa, or maybe something related to other countries, or even foreign is a very tricky word in astrology. Okay, when you use
yeah,
foreign, it means three things. Number one, the cuisine and the food habits are different. Number two, the language is different. And number three, the religion is different. So these are the three things that must be satisfied when you use the word foreign. Okay. So, for example, a person who is living in Punjab may not be a foreigner to a person who is living in Lahore, because it's almost the same thing. It's only a difference of it's only a difference of religion, but the cuisine and the language, it's almost the same. But then a person
okay,
who is living in Punjab can be called to settle in can be said to settle in a foreign place if he goes and settles somewhere in Tamil Nadu, because then everything changes, right? So
yeah,
this foreign is a very tricky concept. Okay.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Right. All right, then I don't think we have questions here, or do we? Okay, good. So thank you everyone for joining in. I'll see you during the Sri Suktam class on Friday, and this recording will be available tomorrow on YouTube. Okay. Thank you so much. Om Gurave Namaha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Namaste.